So next on the agenda, we have 3 TED-style talks from young people who are creating practical solutions for lifelong success in agriculture and agribusiness. Each one of our young speakers is going to narrow in on one of these sub-themes and talk about the impact of each to their work. They'll also talk about what they are doing to improve and contribute to the change in image that both the Deputy Minister and Rita mentioned for the agricultural sector. I'm really looking forward to listening to their perspectives. So I would like to introduce our 2 co-hosts for this session. The first is Arnest Sebbumba, who Rita just referenced. Arnest is an agripreneur from Uganda who founded the Countryside Youth Foundation. He is also an alumni of the MasterCard Foundation Youth Think Tank. And the second is Thelma Namonje. Thelma is a MasterCard Foundation Scholar alumna from Michigan State University, where she pursued her master's degree program in agriculture, food, and resource economics. She was in the first cohort of the MasterCard Foundation Scholars at MSU and is currently working at Indaba Agriculture Policy Research Institute as a research associate. So Thelma and Arnest, I welcome you to the stage.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cape Town. Arnest is my name. For the past 9 months, I and Thelma have been engaged as members of the Youth Advisory Committee for this summit. We've been engaged, and the participation of young people in this summit is a clear indication of the Foundation's continued commitment towards elevation of voices of young people and giving us an opportunity to present our ideas. We are very grateful for that. This is the first in a series of the Young Africa Works Summit that are yet to come. And this year's focus is on providing practical solutions to employment of youth and entrepreneurship in agriculture. As a young farmer, I can tell you agriculture pays, agriculture is gold, and the future of Africa lies in engaging young people in this sector.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How many had breakfast this morning? I can see most of us. Is food important? Is our health important? What about income for our livelihoods, our families, and our nations to fight poverty? Then we need agriculture. The first and second Sustainable Development Goals focus on no poverty and zero hunger. With the high rates of rural poverty and the fast population growth in Africa, we do understand the critical role that agriculture plays in achieving these goals. One of the challenges faced by most youths in Africa is the issue of unemployment. And this year's Youth Summit is framed around the theme of agriculture as a prime source of opportunities for youth employment and entrepreneurship in Africa. Our first keynote speaker, Awadh Milasi, will talk about demand-driven skills development. Awadh is the country projects manager for opportunities for youth employment projects in Tanzania, an initiative of SNV Netherlands Development Organization in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. He has wide experience in youth development and is committed to fostering solutions for sustainable youth employment. Please join me welcome Awadh Milasi, our first keynote speaker.
Am I audible enough? Thank you. Yeah, I would like to start by thanking MCF for considering to put the young people at the center of development in Africa, particularly the young the future. So considering, I would like to thank you very much. I would like to start by taking note of Africa for a few important reasons. One is that Africa is my origin, and also Africa is the home to the youth whose employability will be discussed at this summit. Secondly, Africa is quite resourceful, and also it's also a home to a youngest population. Thirdly, it's a funny fact, but Africa is the only considers it tomorrow's nation. Having said that, this implies that Africa encourages its young people to live in something called a waithood, which simply implies a transition to the adulthood, whereby the young people are far less active in socioeconomic activities, which in turn results to the young people missing reaching out their goals or dreams, but more importantly, it makes it hard for them to meet their day-to-day basic needs. So as a person in Africa, I was also part of this. So 7 years ago, I decided that I should not wait any longer. In 2008, I started my first volunteer service with the African Commission across the continent. For those who may remember, there's something called the African Youth Charter. I was part of the first young Africans to champion the African Youth Charter. Later in 2009, Later in 2009, I initiated a youth-led organization in Tanzania called Youth for Africa. Youth for Africa was among the first organizations in Tanzania to deal with youth employment issues. If you also remember well, back in the day, much more focus was towards social reproductive health, gender, and HIV and AIDS. So it was a bit of a difficult situation for a small company to deal with youth employment because there was no enough attention towards that sector. Later, in 2013, I got a privilege to lead one of the biggest youth employment projects under the partnership of the SNV Netherlands Development Organization and the MasterCard Foundation. This project is called Opportunities for Youth Employment in Tanzania. So until today, since 2013, I'm still assuming this role of the country project manager for opportunities for youth employment in Tanzania. I'm very much honored. Yeah, so unemployment is a leading global issue. As I may also refer to the Deputy Minister's note, and also referring to the visit that we had to Harambee yesterday, unemployment is still on a rise on annual basis. There is something that we have to do about this. In 2014, the International Labour Organization, ILO, conducted a survey, and the result was that about 201 million people were unemployed. This status was a bit higher by 1.2 million people as the status of 2013. Yet, ILO estimates that by 2019, we do expect to have an employment status of 212 million people globally. Exceptionally, this study also suggests that unemployment in sub-Saharan Africa will continue to rise at least at the rate of 8% annually. So this was also evidenced in the Deputy Minister's note and also yesterday as per the current status of South African youth unemployment. Meanwhile, United Nations Population Fund also estimates that by 2025, the world population is going to rise by 1 billion. And by 2050, we're going to have a global population of about 9.8 billion people. My intention of sharing with you with these facts is that we should not get scared. But as entrepreneurs, we should try very much to look at this growing population as an opportunity. As an opportunity to look forward to providing staple food for this growing population could be an opportunity to create a decent job or an enterprise for the youth of Africa. But the question could be, is traditional agriculture attractive enough for our youth? I am in many ways convinced that traditional agriculture will not pay off, nor will it provide decent jobs for our youth if we continue to farm the Stone Age way. It should take us to think out of the box. It should take us to innovate and come up with new methodologies. So as a way to go about providing decent jobs and sustainable employment for our youth, in my own opinion, I consider demand-driven skills development. You can also call it market-driven skills development as quite a strong stepping stone towards providing these decent jobs. You could consider application of improved inputs, application of usage of mobile services such as mobile money services, social media services, which are of course free and vast. In our agriculture, in our agribusinesses, as a way to expand the potential and sustainability of the businesses. You can consider having a young farmer who checks on the weather updates through their mobile phones before they start making an investment in their farms. You could consider young farmers who are making transactions with remote clients via mobile money services. These are the 21st century farmers who are quite different from the old ones. On the other side, there is something called value chain approach in agriculture. Many times when we refer to agriculture, we've very much been thinking about farming, the digging, something which is not quite attractive to our youth. But considering having a value chain approach, which basically provides us with a number of stages and processes of different products, this highlights a wider arena of job opportunities for our youth. But at some point, as development people or experts or even governments, we very much try to believe that we can come up with ready-made solution for our youth. That is not true. It's not true because if at all we are going to segregate our youth in this process, then their motivation, their ownership, their innovation is not going to be part of this, and that will not be sustainable. So I would encourage to very much as we come up with a number of job opportunities for our youth, to also have youth in this process, because as an outcome, it will bring about innovation and sustainability. In this room, I have one of our role model from Tanzania. He's called Ali Mdeme. Ali, wherever you are, can you stand up and wave? Ali is a good example of the outcomes of this project. Ali right now is engaged in both wage and self-employment interventions in Tanga around dairy subsector. His big dream is actually to establish a big dairy farm in the future, and he's already on his way to reach his dreams. I'm very much proud of Ali. So having an example of such an outcome, this vividly demonstrates that demand-driven skills development can very much be sustainable, but also in some ways can reduce the risks of having loss of investment, because agriculture, of course, is not an overnight payer or an overnight, cannot bring an overnight success. So in this process, as the young people know very much how they're going to arrive, it also makes them very much enjoy the whole journey as much as they're going to enjoy the destination. Also, on the other side, I would very much want to talk about the ICTs. Recently, we have noticed that ICT has brought about many opportunities than we've ever imagined. Use of mobile money services, social media, different applications that can be integrated in agribusiness are all the stepping stones towards sustainable and decent jobs in agriculture. Having considered the young people as part of these developments in ICT could help them in some ways influence the markets, influence policies, we've talked about policies, influence, on the other side, curriculum and other learning contents for those who are in learning environments, but also ICT can help increase transparency, which is key to alleviating corruption in Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, as it is said, information is power. Our young people are in that position to tap this power and apply them in agribusiness so that they may come up with decent and sustainable jobs. I would like to then say there is a lot of hope in agriculture. And I want to assure you that whatever we've already started doing and we are doing now will not only be for this generation, but it will last for many more generations to come. I thank you on behalf of all your youth in Tanzania.
Wonderful. Thank you, Milasi. I'm thrilled to be continuing this keynote address. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you our next keynote, Laetitia Mukungu. Laetitia is the founder of Africa Rabbit Center. Africa Rabbit Center is a cooperative that farms rabbits. It's based in Kenya. It's an initiative she founded at the age of 14. She's a MasterCard Foundation scholar at the Earth University in Costa Rica, doing studies in agricultural engineering. Join me in welcoming Laetitia Mukungu.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced, my name is Laetitia, and I'm from Kenya. I'm here today to share with you my entrepreneurship story in the sector of agriculture, as well as discuss mixed livelihoods. So let's start with mixed livelihoods. Generally, there are two main types of livelihoods, the agriculture-based and the non-agriculture-based. Now, the agriculture-based livelihood refers to the families that earn their income primarily from the agriculture activities such as the crop and animal production. And those that lead the non-agriculture-based livelihood refer to those that mainly earn their income from the non-farming activities. For example, families that rely on office jobs, for example. To me, mixed livelihood refers to a combination of both families that earn income from both the farming and the non-farming activities. But we all know that most local farmers back in rural areas lead the agriculture-based livelihoods. And the question is, why do most people in the rural areas depend on agriculture? And I think there are two main reasons. One, the farming activities in rural areas still depend on the traditional technologies that do not require specialization. Unfortunately, most of our local farmers are either none or less educated, and they lack the exposure to the modern farming technologies. As a result, they still depend on the outdated farming methods that end up underproducing. The second reason, it's clear that most of the farming land is found in the rural areas and not the cities. And that's why we expect most of our food to come from the rural areas because there's land. But unfortunately, it's not the size of the land, but the quality of soil that determines agriculture production. And as much as these farmers have the land, but the use and the lack of exposure to modern farming methods still hinders them to produce higher yields. And so you think that with the introduction of mixed livelihoods, the farmers will earn higher income because they are earning from both the non-farm and farm activities. But still there's a problem because even with mixed livelihoods, the diversification into the high income non-farm activities and diversification into low income non-farm activities. Now let's take an example of a poor farmer in Kenya who's both poor and he's non-educated. If such a farmer was to engage in a non-farm activity, he will go for an activity that does not require specialization skills, for example, charcoal burning, because that's what he can afford. And as we all know, such activities do not give a decent earning. So even with the mixed livelihood, farmers still hindered by education or exposure to modern farming methods, still engage in low-income non-farm activities that do not produce higher yields. And so I believe as the young people in this room, or all of us in this room, we have heard stories from our parents, our grandparents who are farmers, and it's clear that agriculture has not been one of the most rewarding economic sector. And this is why it has been neglected by most young people, because unfortunately agriculture is not prestigious enough to make it to the top career list as set by society, which mainly has education, law, and engineering. And so most of us have stereotyped agriculture to be a career for the old in the village or a career for the school dropouts. And we want to go for the higher prestigious careers as we believe. But I believe it's our responsibilities as the young generation, those of us who are receiving the quality education, those of us who are exposed to these modern farming technologies, to make a difference in the agriculture sector back in our communities. And to give an example of a very simple but a high income generating project that's changing lives of people in Kenya, I'm going to share with you my story. So as introduced, I am the founder of Africa Rabbit Center. As the name suggests, we are an organization that has established sustainable rabbit farming to empower rural women and underprivileged children in Western Kenya. I founded ARC in 2009 when I was 14, and up to date, people ask, what were you thinking at the age of 14 to start rabbit farming? And I give them two reasons. One, at such a young age, I was moved by the struggles of women in my community to see their kids through education. I come from a community where it's mostly women, though not educated, move mountains to see their kids get education. And it's their determination that motivated me to work together with them on a project that could make them financially sustainable to pay for their kids' education. The second reason I give is I'm always motivated by a quote given by Tony Gaskins that says, if you do not build your dream, then someone else will hire you to help build their own dream. And I guess from a younger age, I wanted to build my own dream before helping someone else build their dream. And so at Africa Rabbit Center, our mission is to improve the livelihoods of rural women and their children in Kenya through alternative source of income by selling rabbit meat and rabbit byproducts. Now, we'll all agree that poverty has become a recurring problem in Africa and a stereotype used to identify Africa as a continent. And I believe that each one of us in this room is on a mission to reduce or, where possible, eradicate poverty. Another of my favorite quotes is by Napoleon Hill that says, if you cannot do great things, then do small things but in a great way. And I believe it's the small things that we do in great ways that are going to help solve poverty in Africa. And this is why at Africa Rabbit Center, we believe we can change lives in Western Kenya through these tiny and fluffy animals called rabbits. And so what we do at Africa Rabbit Center, we recruit the poor and unemployed women. We train them in rabbit farming, which involve breeding, feeding, and selling. And after 3 months in our training program, the women emerge proficient in rabbit farming skills, and they are later employed to work on the Africa Rabbit Center. And to those interested, as an organization, we support them start their own micro rabbit farms, and they later sell to Africa Rabbit Center. So the center will act as a selling as well as a training center. Now, if you are seated here and you are wondering why I chose rabbits, I give you 3 main reasons why I believe rabbits could be the next animal changing lives in Africa. 1, rabbit farming is a compelling business because they breed quickly and so there's continued revenue. In case you didn't know, rabbits are the most productive domestic livestock. Their gestation period is only 30 days. And on average, a female rabbit can give birth to 42 young ones in 1 year. Now let's give an example of Kenya where a 4-kilogram rabbit can go for $25. If you do the math, then 1 female rabbit can give you $1,050 per year. Second reason, rabbit meat is the most nutritious white meat, a quality that makes it very marketable. Now yes, rabbit meat is white and is very nutritious. Why? Because it contains the highest proteins, and it also has the lowest level of fat and cholesterol. And this is why most restaurants and hotels in Kenya buy it. It's actually healthier than chicken and fish. And just to show you, a kilogram of chicken meat in Kenya goes for around $6, and that of rabbit goes for $7. Third reason, rabbits have multiple markets from their different products, which are the meat, the skin, the droppings, and the urine. As I said, meat is white meat, very nutritious and highly marketable, especially in Kenya. The rabbit skin is used to make winter clothing, such as scarves or boots, and in Asian countries is used to make ornaments. The rabbit droppings. Rabbit droppings make one of the best manure in agriculture. Why? Because it's manure that contains the highest amount of nitrogen and is also a cold manure. Cold meaning when added to crops directly, it will not burn crops, unlike other manure. And also rabbit droppings are a source of food to fish. And that's why most farmers who do fish farming are as well encouraged to do rabbit farming, because then the droppings provide food to the fish. The rabbit urine. Yes, rabbit urine is used as a direct insecticide as well as liquid fertilizer on the farm. All you need to do is mix with water, and it's not poisonous, believe me. So every part on a rabbit body has value, has market, and so this maximizes the income generated. And to just to show the impact that Africa Rabbit Center has had in Western Kenya for the 5 years we've been running, there's been an impact in the provision of education. Through the Africa Rabbit Center, I have managed to start a school. It's called the Sophia Township Primary School, and this school is located in Sophia Slum in Butere, where the organization is. And it's very interesting because this is the only school in that slum. And most kids in that region do not go to school because it's very expensive to afford schools outside the slum to most of the parents. And because it's the only school in the slum, this is why we went from 0 students 2 years ago to 400 students at the moment. And thank you. And still many more students want to join Sophia Township Primary School. The second impact is in employment. As an organization, we currently employ 30 people. There's 15 women on the farm, 10 teachers on the school, and 5 subordinate staff. But we hope to employ more people as we grow. Third impact is in food security. ARC buys, we help the women we work with to buy farm inputs, such as seeds, because most of them cannot afford. And so these seeds, they are grown on their own farms for subsistence farming. And also to reduce their cost on chemical farm inputs, we train them and encourage them to use the rabbit droppings as manure and urine as direct insecticide and liquid fertilizers on their farm. As I conclude, I hope that I have managed to convince a few souls to start rabbit farming. If not, you can join us at Africa Rabbit Center as we expand and transform lives through rabbit farming in Kenya. And to my fellow young people in the room, we make the highest percentage of Africa's population. And so if we want to make change in Africa, then it's us to see that change. Let's not wait until we attain a certain age, or until we get employed, or until we get married. There's a funny quote that says, if you want to change the world, do it while you're single, because when you get married, you cannot even change the TV channel. So I encourage all of you young people to make that change now before it's too late. Thank you.
Wow, I'm speechless. Thank you, Laetitia, for that. We go on. Among the challenges faced by smallholder farmers in Africa is that of access to credit, access to sustainable finances, and these negatively affect their level of production. They can't adopt new technologies, and therefore, we need a solution for the smallholder farmers in Africa in terms of access to finances. Our last but not the least keynote speaker, Rita Kimani, will talk about youth financial services. Rita is a co-founder for FarmDrive in Kenya, an innovative solution for smallholder farmers to access sustainable finance. Her work focuses on leveraging technology to enable smallholder farmers in Africa to achieve sustainable livelihoods. Please join me, welcome Rita to the podium.
Speaker who's walked up here while music is playing. I am delighted to be here amongst fellow youth and change makers who believe in the youth of this continent. My name is Rita Kimani, and I'm on a mission to transform agriculture in Africa, to change the mindset from I farm to farming is my business, that I can actually make money out of farming. As you've heard, FarmDrive is all about making access to finance for the underserved smallholder farmer a reality. And FarmDrive has the potential to impact 50.6 million smallholder farmers in Africa and increase their incomes by more than threefolds. But many would ask, who is Rita to have such an ambition? Who am I to have such an ambition? I'm a farm girl from a rural village in the western part of Kenya. And growing up in my community, I experienced firsthand the many challenges that smallholder farmers face. The output of our very hard work would always be a meager harvest. We would harvest only 4 bags of maize out of a whole acre of land. And do you know how much an acre of land should yield on average? In Kenya, an acre of land should be yielding a whole 40 bags of maize. So from a young age, I decided to focus all my efforts in acquiring skills that would empower me to be part of the solution for some of these challenges that I saw growing up in a rural village. And when I got the rare chance to study, I decided to study computer science at the University of Nairobi. I understood how technology, especially mobile technology, could impact the lives of farmers. And because I was committed and dedicated, I excelled at computer science and graduated with first-class honors. And not just any first-class honors, I was top of my class. And that is not really a mean feat given that computer science is actually a male-dominated industry. But I'm not alone on this journey. Peris Bosire is my co-founder. We not only share the mission to transform agriculture in Africa, but also very similar backgrounds. Peris is also a farm girl who grew up in a rural village in Western Kenya. She also studied computer science and graduated with first-class honors. But let's go back to why were we harvesting only 4 bags of maize out of a whole acre of land that had the potential of 40 bags of maize? Because we had no collateral, no data, no credit, no fertilizer, no seeds, remaining trapped in poverty. Season after season, we recycled seeds from the previous harvest. We never used any fertilizer, and modern farming tools were never employed. But this was not because we wanted to cling so hard on the old farming practices that we were used to, but because we lacked access to finance, we could not afford all this. And it is unfortunate that access to credit is conditioned on collateral or data such as credit histories, bank statements, cash flow records, which unbanked farmers who have little or no financial management skills lack. These traditional lending models simply cannot work for the smallholder farmers. But so how are we tackling this at FarmDrive? We've built an innovative technology platform that captures data on farmers, such as what are they planting, where are they planting, what are their expenses and revenues, what are their yields. And all this is done via SMS, while at the same time acting as a financial management tool. Because now the farmers start keeping those records, and they now start becoming financially aware of their business. But we don't just use self-reported data. We're more sophisticated than that. We also capture data from along the value chains, agricultural value chains, from key actors such as input suppliers and produce buyers, so that we are able to validate and ensure that the self-reported data is actually credible data. And then we transform all this data into innovative credit profiles using clever algorithms that we've built. And now using these innovative credit profiles, the now financial institutions are able to lend to farmers, given that they now have access to readily available and reliable data. And the impact that credit access can have on farmers is unimaginable. Because for many of these farmers, it's not that they require $1,000 to make a difference. Even $10 can make a difference once this farmer is able to access quality seeds at the beginning of their planting season. And so far, we've had amazing traction and support from farmers. I'll tell you the story of Stephen. Stephen Huho is a 30-year-old farmer. He's married, has 2 very beautiful children, and Stephen farms on a 1 acre of land in Fadhi, a village in central Kenya. Stephen has always been looking for solutions and anything that would enable him improve his farming and that of his community. And this led him one day into an internet cafe. And as he was searching for solutions in the web, he came across FarmDrive and was very intrigued by our solution. He immediately signed up via SMS and started keeping records on his farming. He could then now request for reports to analyze and see, is he making profits out of his farming? And he soon realized that some crops were actually making him profits, while others he was making losses. And because of that, he was able to now start focusing on what was more profitable for him. And when he needed credit to buy quality seeds during the next planting season, using his mobile phone, he was actually able to apply for a loan and receive it on his mobile phone. But Stephen did not just stop at his own personal success, at his being able to acquire quality seeds at the beginning of the season. Because of him, we're now working with over 100 farmers in his community who now have access to finance and modern markets. And it is such aspiration and ambitions that the youth have, not just for themselves, but for the community at large, that just keeps us focused in helping the farmers and especially the youths. The youths are innovative, energetic. They're looking for ways to farm just beyond getting a hoe in the morning and going to the farm. They're looking for innovative ways. And for us to support them, then there is need that the solutions we come up with are solutions that capture their aspirations and ambitions, are solutions that are inclusive, valuable, and transformative. And as I speak about transformative solutions, let me also tell you a story of a microfinance institution that we are partnering with in Kenya. It's called Musoni. Musoni is a tech-driven microfinance. They are paperless, they are cashless, and data-driven. They do all the opening accounts via tablets. And they're now able to even make loan payouts and receive payments via M-Pesa. But despite being all tech-driven, Musoni still had to send loan officers out into the fields to collect information about the farmers. And this was not cost-effective. It was timely and very costly. And so when we partnered with them, they were very excited about our solution because with our data, with the innovative credit profiles, then they're able to reach more farmers. They're able to serve farmers faster, and their costs have been brought down significantly. And they can't wait to get hold of more and more data from FarmDrive. But the model I've just described is using data from the farms, or if I may, data from the ground. We have realized that we can make this data hugely richer by incorporating data from the sky. There are thousands of low-orbit satellites that are taking photographs of every acre of land in Africa. With the power of data analytics, we can be able to analyze those photographs and generate income statements from the farm boundaries, from the patterns of the rooftops, from examining the lushness of the vegetation. There are also many satellites that are collecting weather information on rainfall, temperature, humidity, and all this information is very important in determining whether crops will be successful or not at the end of the season. And when you think about the power of combining the data from the ground that we're now using and this data from the sky, then this is going to be incredibly powerful and transformative. But to be able to do all this, then there is need for more resources. I'll tell you that this far we've come as FarmDrive. We've actually bootstrapped all along. And it's thanks to the fact that we studied computer science and have the technical skills that we've been able to build this solution. But to be able to impact more farmers, and we're aiming at least 1 million farmers by 2020, but there are many more farmers to be served. And this just requires additional resources for us to build a huger data analytics team, to employ more sales personnel. And the good thing or the beauty of our solution is that it is a solution that can work anywhere in Africa because you do not need to visit the farmer. They send data via the SMS, and you're using also data from the sky. So the potential of this is incredible. It's unimaginable. And as we sit together today to just discuss how we can empower the youths more, then I encourage you and I motivate you to actually think beyond or outside the box. It's really interesting the way we've been working, and with especially financial institutions. I'm sorry if you're from a financial institution, but most of them are very shy about innovations. But throughout this summit, I want to encourage you to think beyond what you're used to, because what you're used to has brought you this far. To move on to the next level, to move this continent to the next level, then we need to think outside the box. We need to do things differently. And I call upon all of you to actually do things differently today. And as we're addressing youth financing, there's something that I really like to talk about because I've seen it a lot happening in my country. Because giving a farmer finance and they have no access to markets, they have no access to information that can actually help them improve their farming practices is not helpful. And one unique thing about agriculture is that for any substantial progress to be made, then collaboration among the different solution providers, collaboration among the different organizations that are solving the different challenges for these farmers is imperative. I can tell you about something I've also observed in my country is that the government actually released something we call the Youth Fund, that many youths were able to actually apply for loans and build greenhouses. But when you go, we've come across many youths who've eventually abandoned their greenhouses. Yes, they got the finance, but some of them planted tomatoes and never found market for their tomatoes. while others went ahead and planted the tomatoes, but the tomatoes were all destroyed by a pest that, if they had information, would have been prevented. So I applaud MasterCard for championing a holistic approach to solving these challenges, because that's the only way that we'll actually be able to make any substantial progress in agriculture. And as we have this rare opportunity to discuss and find practical solutions of actually engaging the youth in agriculture, I believe that engaging these youths who are innovative, who are energetic, who are very ambitious, is going to change the story of Africa. Thank you.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Rita. Now, I would like to test your energy levels. The floor is open now to questions and answers, but I would request that let's keep the questions short and direct to the point. So, is anybody eager to direct a question or two our keynote? Yes, right there.
How do you overcome that barrier to teach people to eat something new? People are used to chicken and beef and pork, but what are you doing to grow the market by improving acceptability of rabbit?
I think the nutritious part of rabbit meat on itself is an encouraging factor to most people in Kenya. And I know that most locals or it's a culture, there's a culture effect that certain cultures in Kenya or in most African parts don't consume rabbit meat. But so the market depends sometimes on where you are located. But in Kenya, if you know, in Kenya, in most hotels or supermarkets, there's a rise of rabbit demand. And the thing is, because of its nutritious value, that's even healthier than chicken or fish, most people are slowly adapting. And most of our market is actually in the cities, because Africa Rabbit Center, we sell to suppliers who then sell to the big hotels in Nairobi. So we've not yet managed to capture a large part of the local market, because we're still trying to convince people that yes, you can eat rabbits. And most people actually don't eat because they say they're very cute animals. And they're like, how can you kill such a cute animal? Well, apart from that, it takes time to convince the local minds that you can eat rabbit instead of chicken. So we are still working on that. But the benefits that come with rabbit farming just encourage people to actually be part of it.
Thank you, Laetitia. So I will take on the next one. But I would request that you introduce yourself, then put in the question.
That's great. Okay, thank you very much. Warren Nyamugasira from Uganda. We thank you very much, young people, for these inspirational initiatives and testimonies. Actually, my question is not to the panel, but to the Honorable Minister and to Rita, MasterCard Foundation. Rita, where did you find these people? Honorable Minister, did you know that these young people exist around the continent in Africa? And I'm asking this because, in a way, there is a disjuncture between the image about agriculture, okay, and what these young people have been saying to us today. Why are voices of these young people who have been there, done it, not being given a platform officially by government to try and change this mindset that we are clearly struggling with, and we don't seem to believe that mindset can be changed? Because it seems to me, and Rita, maybe if we are short of resources and chairman was here, there could be really a project that enables these young people to be able to share this message and inspire more young people. And if they can do it, then young people will believe that they can do it. But we who are getting in the evening of our days, when we say half-heartedly, it can be done, it does not get done.
Okay,
So,
I'm afraid we're short of time, so let's take the next one. Okay, Rita, can take.
Thank you so much for your question, and I couldn't agree more. We were very, very fortunate to meet all of these young people, and there are many more young people who are doing tremendous things. And part of the Foundation's mission is to provide a platform so that their voices, their stories, and can be heard, and that they can inspire many, many more young people, but also government, and continue to inspire all of us. So I just want to say it is in the affirmative, and the Foundation is busy working on these kinds of initiatives.
Just a quick point. Our theme for when we're doing the National Youth Policy was that young people out there are not looking for handouts, but they're actually looking for a hand up. And I think this is one of the evidence that if you give young people a hand up, they will be able to show their potential. And I think this is just a drop in the ocean of the potential that lies out there, which we should be taking advantage of, which is screaming out saying, can we take Africa forward as young people? And I'm quite convinced that we'll be hearing much more of this with such initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, in less than a minute, I will take on the very last one. Yeah, the lady.
Sorry. Didn't mean to steal your question. I'm Lila Jana. I'm with Sama Source and Sama School. We connect women and youth in Kenya and Uganda to work through the internet, things like data tagging. We actually have one of our women in northern Uganda who's investing in a pig farm, so I'm going to tell her about rabbits really soon with her income at Sama. My question is about the organics market that's opening internationally. I think there's such an opportunity for African agriculture to do things differently than we have in the West, and especially in the US, where a lot of our agriculture is dominated by conventional growth, which is now emerging as pretty bad for us. I'm curious what you guys think about the markets for some of these both non-GMO crops and also certified organic crops, and whether that's filtering into any of your work.
Well, I think the introduction of organic manure to most farmers in Africa is a new thing to most of them, and it's also personally very difficult to convince most farmers, in my case, to use rabbit urine as insecticide on the farm. Most of them are like, no, that's poisonous, it can't happen. So I think it takes also time to change their mentality. But they have realized that their continued use of chemical farm inputs actually end up polluting the soil, and they waste a lot of money, or they spend a lot of money buying the chemical fertilizers. And so most of them are really interested to use, because most of them practice livestock farming. And so training them to use like the cows or the animals' manure on their farm, and in return they don't have to spend money on chemical fertilizers, is something very appeasing to most of them. And personally, I think that's working in my community, and I think it can spread to a greater platform in Africa.
Okay, thank you. A great thank you to our keynotes. It's been our pleasure to host you here today, and a great thank you to our audience. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnest and Thelma, for facilitating this session, and thanks also to Awadh, Laetitia, and Rita for sharing your experience and your perspective. Those were really interesting conversations, and who doesn't like ginormous bunny rabbits on the screen in front of you? I think these keynotes and this discussion really highlight the importance of the role that young people play, to your point, sir, as well. I wanted to mention that we specifically brought in 43 young people to attend and participate in this event. And these young people are people that are perhaps part of our Scholars Program, our Youth Think Tank Initiative. Perhaps they've been part of the different programs that we support across the continent.